Hello, and welcome to the Winter Biking Clinic. I'm Maddie Carlson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Education and Engagement Director at the Street Trust. I bike year round and will admit I prefer when the weather is warm and dry, but winter weather doesn't slow me down, and I'm eager to share all the tips and tricks we've learned at the Street Trust through years of leading this clinic. Before we get to the clinic, I'd like to share a bit about the Street Trust. We advocate for multimodal transportation options that prioritize safety, accessibility, equity, and climate justice. The Street Trust envisions a complete, safe, low-carbon, multimodal transportation system that contributes to equity in access, opportunity, health, and prosperity. The Street Trust is a membership advocacy organization representing street users from across Greater Portland. We advocate to break the political gridlock to address unsafe and incomplete public streets that threaten lives and livelihoods, and to win policy and investments that save lives, reduce barriers, and expand opportunities to the people in neighborhoods our current system neglects. Our members enjoy discounts at local businesses, like 10% off at many bike shops, special event access and savings, and play a big part in supporting our advocacy work. In addition to this workshop, we teach many other valuable clinics, like a general bike commute clinic, and like this one, a version for biking in each season, a winter-specific multimodal travel clinic, which includes a lot of great information about walking, rolling, and transit riding in winter, legal clinics that cover bike and pedestrian law, and the Oregon Friendly Driver Clinic, which trains people how to drive safely in areas where more people are walking and biking. We also run a lot of programs like Safe Routes to School for the whole state of Oregon, the Portland Metro Region's We Bike program that inspires trans people of all genders, gender nonconforming people, Two-Spirit, and women, both trans and cis, to incorporate a bike into their lives. We also host the annual Oregon Active Transportation Summit. You can read about everything I've just shared on our website, thestreettrust.org, or feel free to email me at info@thestreettrust.org. Today, I'll cover the many opportunities a Pacific Northwest winter might offer: rain, cold, darkness, wind, snow, and ice. We're going to start with what to wear from head to toe, then what your bike should wear, then riding techniques and routing considerations. Since we'll be covering so many different topics, we won't be diving too deeply into any one thing in the interest of time. That means if you want to know more about anything, join a live clinic and bring it up at the end, where we can get more into it. Also, if any of these topics we touch on inspire you to do more research on your own and you come across something exciting you think we might not know about, please send it along. So I don't want to imply you need to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff just to ride through winter, but I do want to showcase various items of clothing, and after that, some cool gear and accessories so you can see what's out there. You probably already own things that will do the trick even if you haven't been using your bike in the winter before now. Most of the stuff you can DIY your own version. I'll share information about that in a lot of cases, but explore online to find even more patterns or tutorials. I don't like buying new stuff and I don't like splurging on cycling specific stuff, but I'll admit that most of the things I buy new and cycling specific are cycling specific rain things. I'll talk about different clothing depending on the conditions, rain versus snow versus extreme cold, but there's a ton of overlap. Lots of rain gear is good for blocking wind and cold, and snow gear is often water resistant enough to work well for cold and rainy conditions. One thing to always keep in mind, no matter the season, is to avoid anything or carrying anything loose or dangling that might get caught in the moving parts of your bike. Starting at the top, there are several things you might want to add to your head. Wearing glasses can be a huge deterrent for biking in the rain, but there are a variety of ways to keep your glasses clear, not to mention keep your face more comfortable if you're not a glasses wearer. Visors are great for this, and the brim, pictured here, makes the biggest ones. They're so nice and big since they were originally made to protect recumbent bike riders who are leaning back from the sun, but they're awesome at blocking rain for folks on any type of bike. Tons of people swear by removing the little button at the top of the baseball cap and tucking that under a helmet. There are also some bike helmets with built-in shields, as well as aftermarket shields you can buy and add to your helmet, or various things you can DIY. My dentist gave me one of her disposable face shields that I duct taped to my kid's helmet to keep the wind off his face, and that was great. Ski goggles are pretty great too, though they don't always fit over glasses well, but they're great for cold if you don't wear glasses. I see them at thrift stores all the time too. I own a snowboard helmet and I wear that when I want to wear my goggles because it has a convenient clasp at the back that holds the goggles in place, but you can probably get them to stay put well enough with your regular helmet or hat situation. Wraparound cycling glasses are also better than regular sunglasses at blocking wind or anything from getting in the sides. In that last slide, I talked about putting a baseball cap under your helmet. Any layer that's not super bulky won't compromise the safe fit of your helmet. So add a layer to keep warm, like a balaclava that covers a lot of your face, or a knit cap, or your hoodie hood or jacket hood. If you don't have space under your helmet, there are ear bands or half face masks that don't need to go over the top of your head. These products aren't bike specific, but there are also various ear pads designed to attach to the V of your helmet straps. Mine are from Etsy and they're called Helmuffs, but various bike companies make insulated ear pads as well as tons of patterns so you can make your own, either through knitting or felting or sewing. Helmet covers block air and rain from coming in helmet vents. Some helmet covers even have little flaps at the back to prevent rain from dripping down inside your collar, with the added bonus of keeping the back of your neck warm. Even silly helmet covers made for decoration that aren't waterproof are a nice extra layer when it's not raining and provide a bit of blockage when it is raining. There are quite a few fashion helmet covers. These pictured are from the Yake brand, and some of those are waterproof and some are not. Layering, and we'll get to base layers soon, under a bicycle-specific rain jacket is a great way to stay warm and dry in the winter. Bicycling specific apparel is designed for movement and breathability. Bike rain jackets usually have small vents under the arms that you can unzip for ventilation. They're wider across your shoulders and a bit longer in the back to cover you up well. Wearing non-bike jackets is fine too, but if you have the opportunity to take a test ride when you're not rushed to see how any jacket that's not made for biking works, especially getting off and on your bike is a really good idea. Sliding onto your saddle, mimicking if you were getting started when a red light turns green to make sure you don't have to hop up and over so it doesn't get caught on your saddles. A good way to prepare and see if it works when you're not actually out in the middle of a commute or rushing to get somewhere. The rain cape in my picture is great for those of us who run hot while biking in the rain. It provides amazing coverage for just one piece of gear, similar to a regular poncho, but it's sized to fit well on a bike. So it's not too long with the risk of getting tangled in spokes or too short to provide inadequate coverage. A lot of them have hidden thumb loops or hand holds, so you can hold the front of your cape over your handlebars to keep the whole top of your leg, all of your legs dry. Um, you might want to do some trimming if you were to get a regular rain cape and try to DIY it into a bike cape. IKEA currently has a $15 rain poncho called the Saltson that says it works for biking. It looks really spacious to me, so I'm curious to hear from anyone who has one, how it fits on their bike. Bike rain jackets and rain capes often have hoods that are made big enough either to go over the top of your helmet or to tuck some underneath. And a lot of them have cords so you can tighten them down. At the start of cold weather, any thin, cheap cotton glove is great on a bike. Cycling specific waterproof gloves are a good next step. And then there's a whole array of winter cycling gloves. Regular mittens are great for keeping warmer than gloves since your touching fingers will share heat. Cycling specific lobster gloves and mittens are even better than knit mittens for wet and cold. Layering 2 sets of gloves or 2 sets of mittens is a good next step. Sometimes that's not enough, or that's not enough for just your thumb because it's not next to other fingers to stay warm. And in that case, handlebar mittens, also called pogies, are awesome. I usually don't wear gloves under my handlebar mittens, but they're spacious enough to do so. And having those gloves on for locking up or in case you have a mechanical problem you have to deal with is a good idea so you don't have bare hands if you're not inside your handlebar mittens. My handlebar mittens are a brand not made anymore called Portland Pogies, but you can also purchase them from Bar Mitts or Rad Power in the US or various Canadian, European, and Japanese companies, or make your own. And at the super toasty end of the spectrum, there are heated motorcycle grips that will fit on a bike and heated gloves, both USB rechargeable and battery operated ones, and those are pretty amazing. Bicycling specific rain pants are roomy at the knee to accommodate pedaling and usually have zippers at the bottom so you don't have to take your shoes off to put them off and on. Non-bike specific rain pants are great too. They might not cinch tight enough at the ankle and rub against your chain, which risks tearing them or getting caught in your gears. With rain bike pants, the more you spend in general, the better. So they tend to work even better if you get top of the line ones. I've finally invested in a pair of made for cycling rain pants that have Velcro at the bottom, but they are bottom of the line ones. So even when I cinch them as tight as they go, they're still too wide and rub against my chain. So I have either a DIY ankle cuff that I made from a chopped up sock or hiking gaiters that helps block the gap between the bottom of my pants and the start of my shoe and keeps those pants cinched in nice and tight. My photo here is of rain chaps. If you get overheated in regular rain pants, rain chaps are awesome. The tops of your legs are the main part of you getting hit with the rain. Though for heavy rain or being out for a very long time, even in rain chaps, you will eventually get wet around the edges or through the rain chaps. But they are a marvelous product. Third option is a rain skirt or rain kilt. These aren't widely available, and my own rain skirt is one a friend made for me. I've seen people in heavy waterproof overskirts designed for riding Vespas that look like they'd work really nicely for biking. Skirts that don't have a mechanism to connect to your knees sometimes fly up and then don't keep you dry. So some people use garters to clip them down. There's also a trick called penny in your pants. If you Google that, you'll find a video for holding a regular skirt down, but that also makes it shorter and therefore it's not going to cover up as much and keep you as dry. And on the Vespa skirt note, there is a lot of gear designed for motorcycles or motor scooters or even strollers that can be used to keep warm and dry on bikes. So that's a fun place to look for ideas. When it's very cold out, I dig out my decades old snowboarding pants. I can't zip them up all the way anymore, but they still work great for keeping me warm and dry when it's both wet and very, very cold out. I don't find rubber rain boots the most comfortable thing to walk long distances in, but like a lot of shoes, I find them perfectly comfortable to bike in, and they're a good way to keep your feet dry while biking. After years of not being able to feel my toes for months on end in the winter, I've finally invested in quality waterproof shoes, but there are cheaper things you can do to your existing shoes to stay warm and dry, like me. One easy solution is covering up a non-waterproof shoe. In the middle of my picture, under my waterproof boot, is a shoe cover. This is made for clip-in cycling shoes. They're also called booties or overshoes. You can see that they have a big gap in the bottom to accommodate a cycling shoe cleat, but they work great for regular shoes too. They're not all designed to do a lot of walking in, and too much walking around might tear up the bottom, so keep that in mind. They're also not all waterproof, but even the colorful cotton ones are good for adding a layer of warmth when it's dry or only drizzly out. The waterproof ones are usually neoprene or nylon. Most are ankle high, but some are even taller and do a nice job of keeping wide rain pants legs cinched in. There are similar things made to go just over the front of your shoe, since that's the main part out there getting cold. And it's easier to put on just the toe cover than a whole shoe cover if you find them very difficult, especially the neoprene ones to pull on. Or you can do both. You can layer up a toe cover and then a shoe cover for 2 extra layers of warmth. Instead of, or in addition to these, there are also waterproof socks, like the one at the bottom of my photo. I get a bit sweaty in waterproof socks, so I don't like wearing mine unless it's very, very cold out. And there's also the age-old brilliant trick of putting a plastic shopping bag around your foot, outside your sock, and inside your shoe. Since I used to snowboard, I have my old snowboard boots, and while they're not waterproof, they're good enough when I put 2 pairs of wool socks inside them, and that's what I wear when it's coldest out. It's generally not so cold here in the Pacific Northwest that we have to be careful about wearing a wool base layer. Cottons and synthetics work fine, but if you are a wool wearer, it's great for the cold, as well as for rain. Wool keeps you warm even when it's wet. As for vegan wool alternatives, there's no perfect fabric out there yet. Microfleece is incredibly warm, but it sheds microplastics into the environment, so most people avoid it for that reason. So currently, layering organic cotton and making sure to keep it dry with rain gear is your best bet for non-wool. Layers of all sorts of stuff is great for keeping warm. For example, long underwear or nylons or tights under your regular jeans, or rain pants over jeans when it's snowing out, or a long sleeve shirt plus a windbreaker plus a wool coat. Rechargeable battery heated clothing comes in every imaginable piece to make you even warmer. Every base layer garment has a heated version. There are also jackets and vests and scarves and socks and insoles and gloves and caps, and probably even more that I don't know about. Bring an extra extremity or base layer thing along with you. Damp hands, feet, and head are uncomfortable in rainy weather, but they can be dangerous in cold weather. So consider packing along extra lightweight gloves or an extra balaclava or cap or socks. These can come in handy both for the return trip if you've gotten wet and don't have time for things to dry out, or if you have to deal with a flat tire or any unexpected stop on the way somewhere. There's not much I like less than pulling on a wet pair of gloves. So for this reason, I used to leave the house with 3 sets of gloves for 2 different school runs on the way to work. My waterproof ones would get damp with sweat, so then I'd switch to my first non-waterproof pair and then my second one, non-waterproof pair. And this trio of glove solution works well for any clothing item. You can bring along a pair of spare shoes and socks to change into. That's one of the easiest wardrobe swaps to make. You just have to sit on a dry bench. You don't have to take anything off. Or if your pant cuffs don't stay completely dry and your rain gear and your new booties and gaiters are in the mail on their way to you, you can bring along an extra pair of pants. If all the aforementioned gear and layering isn't doing the trick, little toe hand insole and stick on body warmer packets are awesome. I have reusable ones like the ones shown on the right, which aren't nearly as small, nor do they stay as hot as long as the disposable chemical ones, but they do get warm and they do the trick. When buying gear, take note if it's waterproof or water resistant. Water resistant garments are just fine in light rain, but they're not seam sealed and they will eventually let water in if you get caught in heavy rain or if you're out for a very long time, or if you have to make multiple trips without drying off. Your rain gear should last for a long time, but it might need a little help to retain its waterproofness. Time overwashing or a backpack or messenger bag rubbing against your rain jacket can compromise its waterproofness. Check with the manufacturer of your rain gear for tips on caring for your garment. You can probably find everything you need to know about it online. Waterproofing sprays and washes will replace a washed off or worn off water resistant outer layer for a lot of fabrics, but certain materials simply require a tumble and a warm dryer to reactivate them. Lots of bags for carrying things while biking are designed to be waterproof or water resistant, but not all of them. This applies to backpacks, messenger bags, and panniers, and other bags that attach to your bikes. If you're in the market to get new bags, definitely look for waterproof ones and they'll work in all conditions. But even if your bag isn't waterproof or if you carry your stuff in an open milk crate or other type of basket, you just need to keep your contents dry. It's cheap and easy to stick your stuff into a plastic bag and put that inside your old cloth backpack. And then dry bags are awesome if you want a top of the line, sure to keep your stuff dry bag, like the green one in my picture. But cheapy bags like IKEA bags, Costco bags, I think those are both 99 cents, or the $1.99 Trader Joe's bag are not fully seam sealed and waterproof, but they do a great job when wrapped around something stuffed in a non-waterproof bag to keep it dry. Here's the last gizmo. And of course, while biking for transportation shouldn't be about cool gizmos, I do want to share that I love having a glove and boot dryer, but also putting things over the heat register. or packing your shoes with crumpled up newspaper overnight, or putting things in the dryer works too. Now we're going to look at your bike's wardrobe. Fenders are one of the best bike parts for winter. The rain that hits your bike from above doesn't do harm, but the dirty water that's blanketing the road, mixing with mud and oil, gets kicked up into your drivetrain by your fenderless bike. Dirt that works its way into your chain will grind it down more quickly unless you're very diligent about cleaning it more often. The more coverage with fenders, the better. Your bike should have full coverage fenders on both the front and back tires. If you don't have fenders, your bike and you and your bike and you get caught in the rain, you'll get a wet streak up the middle of your back. You'll also make the person behind you angry as you spray them with a rooster tail of water. Lots of bikes are equipped with eyelets on the front fork and the rear of the frame to attach fenders to. But if your bike is not, there are also a ton of clip-on fenders for bikes that don't have that. And just as in the rain, fenders in the snow will protect you from getting splashed and splashing others with icy cold slush. They'll also keep a lot of the snow and slush from sticking to your bike, as well as protect your bike from the wear and tear this can cause. Adding little mud flaps, also called buddy flaps, to the back of each fender gives you even more protection from the rain. Full fenders cover a lot of each tire, but they don't extend all the way down to the road. Mud flaps are flexible and lengthen your fender coverage. A lot of them are rubber or leather, although you can also DIY them out of anything, like a cut up plastic water bottle. That's a very popular one I see a lot. The front mud flap protects your feet and your chain, and the rear mud flap keeps any water from kicking up behind you. Nice for riders behind you, and very important for your cargo if you pull a trailer. It's nice to keep your saddle dry if you have to park outside on wet days, especially if you're wearing a rain cape or rain chaps, or didn't plan for rain in general and are going to be sitting directly on a damp seat. Covering up leather saddles helps them last a lot longer, not to mention old leather saddles might stain your clothing if they get wet. And even synthetic saddles can be hard to wipe completely dry. Plastic bags and shower caps also make fine seat covers for the do-it-yourself crowd. But one nice thing about a lot of the purpose-made saddle covers is they have a loop that's made to go around your seat post. So when they're not in use, you can tuck them under your saddle without any fear of them falling out. And then you don't need to remember to bring them along on rainy days, nor do you have to stick a used wet cover into a dry bike bag after you're done using it. And you can also ride with your seat cover on your saddle. They're easy to wipe dry, and some people keep their saddle covered at all times to protect nice saddles from theft, since you can't tell it's a nice saddle under the seat cover. Some saddles feel slippery when you sit on them with rain pants, whereas sitting on your saddle cover helps keep you in place better. Legally in Oregon, you need a front white light and a rear red reflector when it's dark out. But a rear red light is even better. I personally like the ease of USB rechargeable lights, but battery lights can be just as bright and they're often cheaper. I also like dynamo lights, like in the left-hand photo. The dynamo hub is in the middle of the wheel and it powers the front and rear lights when the wheel spins. These lights are bright, they're theft-proof because they're attached to the bike and they're always on. They do cost more than most detachable lights, but in my case, since my bike is my car, I find that expense worth it. E-bikes usually come in with built-in always-on lights that are nice and bright. Some helmets have built-in lights, and there are lights that are designed to attach to your helmet. And then there are decorative lights. These are not only fun and festive, they add even more light, and most importantly, they add side visibility. Putting reflective tape on moving parts of your bike or body is another great way to add side visibility. Your regular bike tires are fine for most winter conditions, from slick, skinny road bike tires to 5-inch wide, knobby fat bike tires. The wider the tire, the more contact with the ground in any conditions, and some traction in the form of any sort of tread will make your tires grippier, which is nice in rain and snow, but again, it's not a requirement. For rain, I ride my regular smooth tire bike. For fresh snow and slush, I stick to my regular bike, but for deep snow, I often borrow my teenager's mountain bike because those knobby tires really help with grip for getting started and preventing any little slips while stopping. Now, ice is a special tire situation. If you want to, or if you have to ride on icy days, get a set of studded tires. The metal studs dig into the ice and help prevent slipping. Studded tires work in snow or on plowed roads, but they're heavy and slow, not to mention an added expense. So they're generally favored only by people who regularly encounter icy situations. Studded tires come in all sizes and widths to fit most bikes. One important thing to know about studded tires is that new ones need to have their studs bedded in, which means riding 25 miles on asphalt without bursts of speeds or hard braking. So you can't order them or go buy them on the first icy day and immediately start riding, or some of those studs will fall out. And like most things, there are some other and DIY options like zip ties all around your tire to provide some traction, only if you have disc brakes, because these will interfere with rim brakes. And Kickstarter has the occasional product like tire chains for bikes or zip-on layers of studs. The best medicine is prevention. Usually we recommend making sure your tires are fully aired up, but for winter, you'll sometimes want to lower your tire pressure. Definitely lower your air pressure for snow. Some people like doing this for rain too. The squishier the tire, will have a bigger contact point with the ground. So you can find the numbers of your ideal tire pressure printed on the side of your tire. Some show a range, and the lower number of the range is where you would want to be. But for tires with just one number listed, which is your maximum, reduce by 20%. Tires lose pressure gradually any time of the year, but this happens more quickly when it's cold. So notice when your tires are getting too low. Now, if you've never thought about tire pressure before, pump up your tire to the max number and then squeeze them to see how it feels when they're at their fullest. And then you'll have a good starting point for keeping track of how they should be feeling. In case dealing with your tire pressure is new to you, here's a close-up of the two most common valve types, Presta and Schrader. Pumps usually pump both. Some floor pumps have two openings. One side has a narrow opening for the Presta valve, and the other side has a wider one for Schrader. Smaller travel pumps might have a chuck that you need to unscrew and flip around to change from one style to another. And there are also little adapters that you can attach to your valve directly on your bike. So you can pump up a Presta valve with a Schrader pump and vice versa. People sometimes leave those adapters always attached to their bikes so they don't lose track of them. To let a little air out of a Presta valve, you unscrew the teeny little nub at the end and press down. For a Schrader valve, depress the pin in the middle to let air out. You can probably get it with your finger, but keys work great for this. Earlier, I mentioned zip ties for disc brake ice tires, and here's a picture of rim brakes versus disc brakes. If you have rim brakes where the pad pinches along the entire rim of the wheel, like on the left, rather than disc brakes where the braking surface is a smaller rotor near the center of your wheel, use a rag to dry off the rims of your wheel at the end of each rainy ride. Disc brakes you don't need to touch, and you should never touch them with your fingers because the grease from your hands messes with them. But that's a great way to keep your brakes lasting longer, drying off your rims if you have rim brakes. Remove any snow and slush that sneaks past your fenders. Use a gloved hand, a towel, or a brush to wipe off snow, especially from your chain. If you have a single speed bike or an internally geared hub, you're better set for freezing temperatures because exposed gears can freeze up and essentially turn your bike into a single speed until it's indoors long enough to thaw out. To help prevent freeze ups, keep your chain clean and lubricated throughout winter. Check it every few days. If you feel like your bike collects too much snow while you ride, don't house your bike in a heated space. A cold garage stored bike is going to be less sticky for snow to accumulate on. However, getting on a bike that's been stored in the cold or even parked out in the cold for a short while might necessitate thicker layers for you. A cold top tube against your leg and cold handlebar grips can transfer that chill directly into your body. For cleaning and lubing your chain, the goal is to get just a little bit of chain lube inside each link. It is not to make your chain completely wet looking like I originally thought. So to clean your chain, first you wipe it down with a rag. I like using an old t-shirt cut into pieces that I throw away after each cleaning. Apply 1 drop of chain lube per link. Move your pedals in a backwards circle if you don't have a bike stand to get your chain moving, and then wipe it clean again, and then wipe it one more time after you've ridden once. And then on the right, I have a picture of an optional chain cleaning kit. Those go for about $40 if you don't want to do the wiping by hand. If you have an e-bike, check your owner manual. It's probably easy to find online if you don't have a physical booklet for your manufacturer's best practices, and read articles about how to best care for your e-bike battery, because treating them well makes them last a lot longer. Most e-bikes have lithium batteries, so most of this information is based on that. Knowing what kind of battery your e-bike has is important as you read safety and care tips. It's fine to ride your e-bike when it's cold and wet. However, all batteries perform worse in the cold, so expect to have about 30% less range. E-bikes are designed to get rain on, but don't let your battery or your motor get submerged in water. Never charge a cold battery. It can lead to lithium plating, which can permanently damage the cells, reduce its lifespan, and increase fire hazard. Bring your battery up to room temperature before you plug it in. If winter weather is not your jam and you're going to stay off your e-bike for a bit, you can keep it in its best shape by storing it in a dry space that's always somewhere between 35 and 90 degrees. But the best specs for battery storage are, if stored for over 2 weeks, keep the battery at 40 to 80% charge at 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and check your battery status every 90 days to prevent complete discharge and cell damage. These help your battery perform at its best for multiple years rather than lasting for less than a year. In our regular bike commute clinic, we cover more legal information, and our Rules of the Road legal clinic is a whole hour of legal information. But today I want to call out just a couple things in particular interest in winter. Just like in a car, on bikes we're required to stop at all red lights. Unlike cars, since January 1st, 2020, Oregon has a stop as yield law for people on bikes, which means that if if the intersection is clear, that is, if no one is approaching from either side and no one is coming towards you who might be turning left, you can treat a stop sign like a yield sign. You must still slow down and look both ways, but being able to avoid coming to a complete stop when fighting the wind or avoiding ice is very useful. For regular non-e-bikes, it's okay to ride on the sidewalk in most areas of the downtown transit, outside the downtown transit mall area, which is Hoyt to Jefferson and Front to 13th. But e-bikes are not allowed on the sidewalk. Riding on the sidewalk is not actually as safe as riding in the street because you're not as visible as when you're in the street, nor as predictable. People generally don't expect to encounter bicycles on the sidewalk. If you're on a regular bike and riding on the sidewalk, be sure to always yield to pedestrians, always use your voice or a bell when passing, travel at the speed of pedestrians or at the speed of a jogger at the absolute fastest, and when in doubt, you can dismount and walk your bike. And it is okay to walk your e-bike on the sidewalk. If there's a bike lane, we are required to use it. However, if that lane is filled with anything dangerous like leaves or ice or gravel or potholes, another law, which is bike as far to the right as is safe and practical, comes into play. So it's okay to leave the bike lane during those times of winter when it's filled with the various crud. For our general year-round clinic, route finding, it's important to spend some time researching good routes. The best streets for biking in good weather are not the streets on which you'd normally drive. However, sometimes winter conditions flip that around, and we're going to discuss that just a bit. Portland, the Portland Bureau of Transportation has free paper maps that you can order. They have a mobile-friendly interactive map, whole city and regional printable PDF maps, whole city and regional maps in Spanish, and maps with legends as well as bicycle safety tips in Somali, Nepali, Russian, Burmese, and Arabic. The webpage where you can find all these is called the Bike and Walk Maps of Portland. And you can Google that phrase and you'll get it on the first hit. Google Maps work very well for biking around Portland. What I like to do is toggle to Google Street View to see what intersections look like when I'm choosing my routes. And then tools that people usually use for recreation can also be helpful, like the Strava Global Heat Map, routes users have saved in Map My Ride, and searching through routes and rides on Ride with GPS, which is a Portland-based company. Wet roads can be slippery, especially with the first rain after a dry spell. Don't ride through puddles. You don't know what's in them. Hidden potholes can easily cause flat tires, not to mention cause a crash. Avoid riding over metal grates and plates and cross train tracks at 90-degree angles. Avoid riding over piles of leaves. Even road paint can be slippery when wet. Most paint is textured, but not always. I notice this most when I'm stopping and putting a foot down. My bike is fine, but sometimes my foot slips a little bit on just specific areas of road paint where they haven't painted with the textured stuff. Give yourself extra stopping distance, brake slowly and lightly, especially for rim brakes. You might notice it takes a little bit more distance to come to a complete stop. Take corners slowly. The more upright you are, the more of your tire is in contact with the ground. In terms of wind, when I poll groups before at the start of this clinic, most people say they dislike wind more than they dislike rain. Portland tends to get a dry east wind or a wet west wind. If you have more than one bike and it's very windy out, take the heavier bike out. If you have anything that might act like a sail in the wind, like a safety flag or a cargo bike kid cover, you might notice it catches a lot of wind, so much that you might want to leave it off. Route-wise, you'll probably develop various workarounds depending on what the weather is. If you have to cross a bridge, some are more pleasant depending on the conditions. If you're feeling buffeted by the wind and you don't want to be on the Hawthorne Bridge with no barrier between you and the car lane, take Tillicum Crossing, even though you're going to have a longer bridge journey. If you don't like the amount of rail interaction on either end of Tillicum Crossing on wet days, you might opt to take the Hawthorne Bridge. New snow is pretty fun to ride in. It's slow going, whether you want to go slow or not, but everything is sparkly and it's much quieter out than normal. There's more room with fewer people out and about, and everyone who is driving and walking and bicycling around you is moving slowly and cautiously. Give yourself a lot of extra time in the snow. Your usual time estimates won't be anywhere near accurate. If you can see patches of ice, go slowly around them. Be especially mindful of shady spots that might hide melted and refrozen snow. If there is ice out, ideally you have studded tires. One nice thing about bikes is you can always get off and walk. And if you're in a slippery situation, your bike acts like an extra balance point while walking. Even though even walking your bike on ice is easiest with traction cleats, like Yaktrax on your shoes and studs on your tires. For both snow and ice, look for plowed roads. This is where we flip the route finding advice from taking quiet roads instead of busy roads. Snow is easier to deal with on plowed roads because it's quicker to ride, and ice is easier. Icy conditions are more gone on plowed roads, so it's a lot safer in terms of slipperiness. Bigger streets get plowed first or only, and busier streets with more car traffic will have melted more from all the car activity. There might be favorite parts of your regular route that you need to avoid when it's snowy or icy. Like I like to utilize a lot of parking lot cut-throughs. I love these for lots of reasons, avoiding super busy intersections, shaving off a little distance of my trip, and gaining access to stoplights for crossing huge streets. But since they're so quiet, they ice over and they stay that way a lot longer than other spots. As a general note, any surface change creates a spot where you might more easily lose control, like switching from a paved street to gravel or grass to dirt or a metal plate to asphalt. Be very careful at any transition spot. Putting your bike on the bus is a wonderful way to get around in winter or any season. And sometimes it's a last moment adjustment when you realize just how icy or snowy it is out. Our buses here in Portland use the SportWorks DL2 rack. So if you travel to a different city, these requirements may differ slightly. I'm going to describe exactly what the requirements mean soon, but for starters, the basic specs are wheel sizes between 20 and 29 inches, maximum tire width 2.35 inches up to a 44-inch wheelbase, and weigh 55 pounds or less. Along with your PSI, your pounds per square inch tire pressure printed on the side of your tire, your wheel size is printed as well. So you can see both what your diameter is and make sure it's between 20 and 29 inches, as well as what your width is. If it is a number like 35, that's probably centimeters. So you'll have to convert to inches to see how close you are to 2.35 inches. Wheelbase is measured from the middle of your wheel, from the hub to the hub, and most bikes are below 44 inches. But a lot of e-bikes, especially those with mid-drive motors, are going to be too long for our bus bike racks. And then for weighing your bike, if you have a regular scale, one convenient way to weigh it is weigh yourself, then weigh yourself holding your bike, and then subtract one number from the other. Our FX2 line has the same specs, although it can accommodate bigger everything. However, you're going to often find that a regular coach is running the FX line, so you can't be sure that your longer or wider or heavier bike is going to fit if you're counting on taking the FX. Max, the light rail, is also more versatile. Technically, you can only bring normal sized bikes on, no cargo bikes, no tandems, no recumbent bikes, but I've seen this done a lot. So in a weather emergency, there's a good chance you'll be allowed on. If your bike is too big tired, too heavy, or if it's already taken and you can't hang it on the hook, stand with your bike. What I like doing if I'm going to the end of the line or near the end of the line, or if the max isn't very crowded, is I don't enter the doors that are marked with the bike symbol. I enter the other doors so I can get to the middle of the train car, and I lean my bike against me as I sit. People can still access their nearest door, and so they won't have to skirt past me, but I do take up a lot of room if someone does want to skirt past me. This is not the official way you're supposed to ride with the bike, though. You made it to the end. Email us if you have any questions, info@thestreettrust.org. Check out our website, thestreettrust.org. Keep in touch by signing up for our newsletter, sign up to volunteer with me at an event, and donate to the Street Trust to support multimodal transportation options that prioritize safety, accessibility, equity, and climate justice. Bye.